chosen one. Congratulations, it is done. Before you scroll, before your mind tries to question this, sit with that sentence for a moment. It is done. Not almost done, not in progress, not maybe if you try harder. The done. And something inside you already knows it. That quiet feeling you couldn't explain, that strange calm that replaced the chaos, that moment where you stopped reacting the way you used to. That wasn't random. That was the shift. Because what you went through, you were never meant to stay in it. You were only meant to survive it long enough to become someone who could never be broken by it again. Read that again. You didn't just escape it, you outgrew it. There was a time when it felt endless, wasn't there? The nights that stretched longer than they should. The thoughts that wouldn't turn off. The feeling that something was always about to go wrong, even when nothing was happening. You carried a weight you couldn't even describe. And the worst part, most people never saw it. They saw your strength, but not the pressure it took to maintain it. They saw your silence, but not the battles behind it. They saw your patience, but not how close you were to breaking. You are holding everything together while quietly falling apart. And still, you didn't quit. That matters more than you think. Because what you endured wasn't just difficult. That matters more than you think. Because what you endured wasn't just difficult. Sepethadas. There were moments when you questioned everything. There were moments when you questioned everything. Why me? Why does this keep happening? When will this end? And the silence that followed those questions felt louder than anything else. But now you understand something you couldn't see back then. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Every delay, every disappointment, every situation that forced you to stand alone, it was building something inside you that no one can take away. The you were being shaped into someone who doesn't just survive storms. You become the storm, and now you've reached the part of your journey where things don't feel the same anymore. The triggers don't hit the same. The fear doesn't control you the same. The situations that used to drain you barely touch you now. That's not coincidence. That's completion. You crossed a line you didn't even see, and once you cross it, there is no going back. That version of you that tolerated less than you deserved is gone. That version of you that stayed in cycles just to feel safe is gone. The that version of you that kept explaining yourself to people who never tried to understand is gone. And you didn't force it. It just fell away like something that no longer belonged in your life. Because it doesn't. And here's the truth most people won't tell you. When something is truly finished in your life, you don't always get closure. You get clarity. You stop needing answers. You stop needing validation. You stop needing people to admit what they did. Because you finally see it for what it was. And once you see it clearly, you're free. That's where you are right now. Free but unfamiliar with it. Because when you've been in survival mode for so long, peace feels strange at first. You keep waiting for something to go wrong. You keep expecting the same patterns to repeat. You keep looking over your shoulder, even when there's nothing there. But listen carefully. That chapter is closed. You are not going through that again. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You don't react the same. You don't attach the same. You don't tolerate the same, and that changes everything. The cycle can't repeat, because you're not the same person who was stuck in it. That's what growth really is. It's not loud. It's not always visible. It's not something you can explain in a single moment. It's subtle, until one day you realize, I don't feel the same anymore. And that realization changes your entire direction. Think about it. The things that used to consume your energy, the people who used to have access to your emotions, the situations that used to keep you awake at night, they don't have the same power now. That's not temporary, that's transformation. And transformation doesn't reverse. You didn't just learn lessons, you became someone who embodies them. And that's why this is done. Not because time passed, because you evolved. You reached a level where that experience no longer aligns with who you are. And life has no choice but to respond to that. There are things that simply cannot follow you into this next phase. The old patterns, old attachments, old fears. They don't survive here. Because this version of you doesn't feed them anymore. You don't chase confusion anymore. You don't entertain inconsistency anymore. You don't hold on to things that hurt you just because they feel familiar. That's over. And you didn't even have to announce it. Your energy made the decision for you. That's power, quiet power. The kind that doesn't need validation, doesn't need attention, doesn't need to prove anything. Because it knows. And deep down, so do you. That's why this message feels different. It's not telling you something new. It's confirming what you already feel. That sense of completion. That inner knowing that something has shifted permanently. That calm confidence that says, I made it through. Not perfectly. Not without scars. Not without moments of doubt. But you made it. And the version of you that came out of that is not the same one who went in. You're stronger in ways that can't be seen, the wiser in ways that can't be taught, calmer in ways that can't be shaken, and most importantly, you're free in ways that can't be taken. So stop looking back. There's nothing there for you anymore. No lesson you missed, no answer you still need, no version of you waiting to return. That chapter served its purpose. And now it's over, completely. You don't have to prepare for it to happen again. You don't have to guard yourself the same way. You don't have to guard yourself the same way. You don't have to carry that weight anymore. Put it down. It's not yours to hold. Not anymore. And as you step forward from here, things will start to align in ways that feel almost unreal. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because you became clear. Clear about what you deserve. Clear about what you allow. Clear about who you are. And clarity attracts alignment. That's the next phase. Not survival, alignment. Where things don't have to be forced. Where connections feel natural. Where opportunities don't come with confusion attached. Where peace is your normal, not something you have to fight for. You earned that through every moment you didn't give up, through every time you chose to keep going, even when it felt pointless, through every silent battle you won, that no one ever saw. This is the result, completion. So take a breath, let it sink in. It is done, and you are not going back, not to the pain, not to the confusion, not to the version of yourself that accepted less than you deserved. That path is closed. And what's ahead of you requires the version of you that you've become. Stronger, clearer, unshakable. So walk forward without hesitation, because the hardest part is already behind you. It ended quietly, not with a final argument, not with a dramatic goodbye. Not with the kind of moment you imagined over and over again. It ended in a way you almost didn't notice at first. And that's what makes it real. Because the most powerful endings don't announce themselves. They reveal themselves. One day you just stop feeling it. The weight, gone. The urgency, gone. The attachment that once felt impossible to break suddenly has no hold on you at all. And that's when it hits you. It's over. Not temporarily. Not let's see what happens next. Over. Not let's see what happens next. Over. The chosen one. Congratulations. You will never have to go through that again. But here's what no one prepares you for. The moment after it ends. The silence that follows. Because when something has occupied your mind, your emotions, your energy for so long, its absence feels unfamiliar, almost suspicious. You find yourself waiting. the waiting for the message, waiting for the feeling to come back, waiting for the same pattern to restart, but it doesn't. And that's when a different kind of realization begins to settle in. This time, it didn't repeat. This time, you didn't go back. This time, something changed in you. And that something is everything, because cycles don't just break on their own. They end when you stop being the version of yourself that kept them alive. Think about that. It wasn't the situation that held you. It was the connection you had to it, the meaning you gave it, the part of you that kept trying to fix, understand, or hold on to something that was never meant to stay. And now that part of you has evolved. You don't chase clarity anymore. You embody it. You don't wait for respect. You require it. You don't settle for almost. You recognize your worth too clearly now. That's why it's done. The not because the world suddenly became different, but because the you did. There was a version of you that tolerated confusion, a version of you that stayed longer than necessary, a version of you that kept hoping things would change. Even when all the signs said otherwise, that version served its purpose. But it no longer exists, and without that version, the cycle has nothing to attach to. That's why it feels so final, so absolute, so the irreversible, because it is. And you can feel it in the way you respond now, in the way you observe instead of react, in the way you walk away without needing to explain yourself. That's not detachment, that's alignment. You're no longer aligned with what hurt you. And alignment is something you don't have to force. It either exists or it doesn't. And right now, you're aligned with peace. But let's be honest, there's still a small part of you that wonders. What if it comes back? What if I fall into the same pattern again? What if I'm not as strong as I think I am? The thought voice is just an echo, an old survival instinct that hasn't fully realized the environment has changed. Because you're not in the same place anymore. You're not the same person anymore. You've seen too much, learned too much, grown too much, to ever go back to that level of awareness. And awareness changes everything. Once you see something clearly, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize a pattern, you can't unknow it. Once you feel your own worth, you can't accept anything beneath it without noticing the misalignment instantly. That's the difference now. Before you questioned yourself, now you trust yourself. Before, you needed reassurance. Now, you rely on your inner clarity. Before, you stayed in things that drained you. Now, you leave without hesitation. That 3 or 4 in that shift is permanent. And that's why this ending is different from all the others. Because it didn't come from exhaustion. It came from evolution. You didn't walk away because you couldn't take it anymore. You walked away because you finally understood you didn't have to. That's power, the kind of power that doesn't come from control, but from release. And release is what sets you free, not holding on tighter, not trying harder, not proving your worth, just letting go completely. And now you're here, standing at the edge of something new. Not rushing, not forcing, and not chasing, just existing in a space that feels lighter than anything you've known before. That's peace, real peace, the kind that doesn't depend on circumstances, the kind that stays, even when everything around you changes. And this is where your next chapter begins. Not with chaos, not with confusion, but with clarity. You're going to notice things differently now. You'll sense intentions faster. You'll recognize energy before words are even spoken. You'll feel misalignment immediately, and you won't ignore it. That's not overthinking. That's awareness, and awareness protects you in ways you used to rely on struggle to teach you. You don't need to learn through pain anymore. You've already learned enough. And now you learn through alignment, through ease, through clarity, through choices that actually feel right instead of just familiar. That's the reward, not perfection. But not a life without challenges, but a life where you no longer abandon yourself to survive. You stand with yourself, always. And that changes every experience moving forward. So when you think about what you went through, don't see it as something that broke you. See it as something that revealed you. It showed you your limits and then pushed you beyond them. It showed you your fears and then forced you to face them. It showed you your patterns and then gave you the chance to break them. And you did. That's why it's over. That's why you'll never have to go through that again. Because you're no longer the person who would. Let that settle fully. There is nothing unfinished, nothing unresolved, nothing waiting for you to return and figure it out. It has already been figured out through your growth, through your awareness, through the version of you that exists right now. So stop preparing for the past to repeat itself. It won't. Not in the same way, not with the same intensity, not with the same outcome. Because you won't allow it. Not consciously, not subconsciously, not energetically. That door is closed, locked, and you didn't lose anything by closing it. You gained yourself, and that is worth more than anything you left behind. So take one more breath and step forward, not carefully, not fearfully, but confidently, because this time you're not walking into another cycle. You're walking into alignment, and there's nothing behind the you that can follow you there.